Oh, no. Some landlords, they are on a sinking ship because the type of asset they own because of land tax is annihilating them. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you some tricks on land tax being an investor. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Burgio, Mark Novak, episode 1540. Why do strata units pay less in land tax? What is unit entitlements? How does it affect property? Because I know from your intro, Mark, like there's the big land tax component, and I think a lot of people just don't get it, where it's like, why am I paying 30 grand land tax on this $2 million asset? But then I buy this $2 million, $3 million strata property, and the land tax is very, very little. What does it all mean? How does it apply? And what are some things to look at on the trends we're seeing? Any more questions I'll throw in there, I'll let you know. But land tax, unit entitlements.
Yeah, and
Right.
like, it's amazing because, and that's the way I've always done it, because, and it's like, no. You are eating off your limbs because you are not acknowledging, accepting, understanding how land tax is working with this landscape at the moment. Furthermore, I now remembered what I wanted to talk about this morning, Burge. Yeah. I wanted to talk about the it being fixed, the land tax threshold being fixed. That's another topic. That's what it was. But you've got to understand as a landlord that we're so affectionate about houses and we're so poo-poo about units, but the Australian government has put some serious shit in place to make sure you are buying units and not houses as an investment. So much so, the land tax that they de-incentives or penalties compared to the incentives of buying a unit with land tax is just massive. We're going to teach very quickly this morning, going to teach you the A, B, and C on the difference between a house with land tax and a unit with land tax. Now, in case you're thinking we're being academic and picking stuff apart and talking about little numbers, this can be $500,000 difference on the same asset value purchase over a 10-year period out of your pocket. $500,000. What can you buy for $500,000? You can buy a lot of things for $500,000. So if you amortize what we're teaching you this morning about land tax, you will save $500,000 or you will waste $500,000.
Yeah, and I think once you look at unit entitlements is a very important thing to look at, because yes, it affects the land tax, also affects a portion of outgoings you're paying for the building. It affects the levies you're paying per quarter, but also voting power and a lot of decisions, which you will not be sort of used to coming from the freestanding world where you don't have strata, you don't have other owners. So, and that's a lot of the time the reason why a lot of investors will not buy strata. But what we've seen in the last 5 years, the land tax component and difference has become so severe, where a $2 million industrial property is paying 30 grand a year land tax,
or house,
where you can buy nearly $6 million worth of strata warehousing to pay the same land tax and have 6 times the income. Well, we did a like for like, and it was like 2 million paying 30 grand, and then it was a I think it was like $1,000 or less than $1,000 for a strata unit, which had the same income. Yes, that was it. It was a $1.4 million strata warehouse, but still had 60 grand income, same as this $2 million industrial property had 60 grand income. One had 30 grand land tax bill, and one had a very little, I think it was $500 land tax bill. So it's massive, but you should also understand how it works, how it's worked out. And the simplest way is a surveyor values the building, because if you've got 1,000 square meter block in freestanding, you're the one owner, one entitlement, and you pay the 400% of that entitlement. So you could say 1,000 square meter block equals, say, 1,000 unit entitlement. But if then you can imagine 10 apartments or 10 storage units on that 1,000, all equal size, you're now paying 1 in 10 of that entitlement. So you have 1 in 10 of the land tax bill. You have 1 in 10 voting rights as well. But your income could be the same, if not more, than what it was previously. And your net position, I think a lot of the time in residential purchases, no one's ever really looked at their net position. Even when buyers talk about yields, they're always talking about gross yield all the time. In commercial, we never talk gross. We're always talking net. And I think, especially with the growth of land tax, investors have to be looking at that figure now and finding out what the true net position is. Because you're right, a 30 grand bill over 10 years is 300 grand. That could be all your capital growth gone, let alone you're negatively geared every year as well.
So, to give you an idea, a conversation we had yesterday with a super successful landlord that hadn't worked this out. He was like,
SMS. Yeah, the SMS 0460 111 land tax, and that will send you a response with some great information there. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, if you want to educate yourself, that's hit that number up with your SMS, and it'll educate you on land tax more than we're doing today. But you know, these are super smart landlords that we're talking to, and we're educating on that don't know what we're telling you this morning. The maths that struck me yesterday when we were talking about it was a house, like you mentioned, a warehouse for $2 million or $2.2 million. Once you were over that threshold, was attracting $650 a week in land tax every week for 52 weeks. A house that's going to rent for $1,300, $1,400 a week in our area is going to have a $680, $50 a week land tax bill. That's amazing.
But in there, just so people are probably thinking, oh, this is only affecting the super rich. Like, they're over the threshold, they can afford to pay it. But you've got to think, people who, let's say, bought a home in Narrowena 30 years ago for 200,000 are now well over that threshold. And they would have seen, their property's worth 2-3 million, but they've got no income from that. And now let's say they're buying an investment property because they've had great capital growth. They've been very conservative. They bought let's say they want to buy what they have. That same house now will have well and above the full freight of land tax plus the extra from their home. So we're not talking about the 1% of the 1% who own 20 residential properties. This could be someone who's never really been in property. They've had their family home. They're looking to buy an investment. So it's big. It's how massive. Much the land tax now is.
Now, to give you an idea, if you own a unit, if you own 2 units of the same value to a house, you're looking at about a year, instead of 30,000 in land tax, a bill every year of 30,000 in land tax. You're getting a bill every year of about 6,000.
Yeah,
it's a fraction. That's the massive difference. So our point out of today is you've got to look strata. If you're buying warehouses that are in a strata, like we've got for sale in French's Forest, or if you're buying units that, like what we've got for sale in DY, the land tax is going to be a fraction, and over a 10-year period, you are going to save a shit ton of money.
Yeah, and this is not to turn people necessarily off freestanding properties.
It is.
Buy these properties in French's Forest. It's just another point to consider, because there's plenty of options with freestanding where you can add value, add dwellings, have multiple incomes on that property. There's a lot you can do there, but it's just like we've had owners, especially like the good old Greeks or Italians who have owned for many years, would scoff at the idea of buying a strata property or selling their assets. Like I'm having conversation with owners that have key holdings on the beaches who their attitude was like, this is going to my great grandkids, and now they're like, oh, what could I get? And they're like, what's changed? And it's like, well, land tax now is 150 grand. It used to be 30. Like, and this was the other thing I'm having. This could be another topic as well. It is another topic, but the big thing is, like, let's say the rates are $300 a square meter of rental. The breakdown used to be, let's say 250 of that was your rent and only $50 was your outgoings. Now we're seeing it being like $100 of that 300 to outgoings, 150 of that. And the owner's instant attitude is like, well, it's outgoings, but add it to the rent. And I'm like, well, that used to be how it worked, but you hit a cross, what's the equilibrium of where the rent is and the market rate is, and where your outgoings your outgoings have doubled, but the market rent has not doubled. So now with your $300, $200 is your outgoings. So that's where people are looking at it, and that's why we're bringing it up.
The proportion was much smaller. The proportion of your outgoings has grown for an investment. You got to control it. People's eye on the pie with investments is rent. That's what they see coming in on the statement every month, and they're very sensitive towards it being landlords. But what they're missing and what is net. What are they getting net? So those outgoings have crept. They are out of control. Land tax is your biggest threat at the moment as an investor in New South Wales. And make sure you understand when you are buying an asset how important your outgoings are, and your biggest outgoing being land tax. So consider that when you're purchasing, please.
And it's crazy to think that how crazy strata rates have gotten as well. It's almost like everyone just said, like, I'm looking at, like, I've said a lot more commercial.
Everyone's suing everyone. Everyone's suing everyone.
Like buildings that you look at, it's like you've got no gyms, you've got nothing there. Why, instead of it being $500 a quarter, it's $1,500 a quarter. And it's like, where's all that money going? Why is it that high? And everyone just takes it on the chin. I was with one buyer, and he goes, I fought tooth and nail. I kept it low, and as soon as I sold out, they tripled it and it's like, I think a lot of people are just busy with their lives. But anyway, that's another topic as well.
Nuts. Guys, please ring us, pick up the phone, ask us the questions. If you ever want to know anything about investing, we are fortunate to manage 2,000 landlords' properties. We see what our landlords do. We hear what our landlords do with the successful ones, the not successful ones, and we learn and we share that information back to you guys. So always feel free to pick us up and download off us, or ask us questions. Anything else to say before we go, Mr. Burge?
No, very good. And let's get cracking.
Have a beautiful day. See ya. Bye.